My dad was a big tough guy. He had a lot of respect. He used to beat people with bats and stuff like that. And he ended up getting murdered when I was 3.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Greg.
Hi, I'm Naveed.
Hi, I'm Mike.
I'm Alessandro.
Good.
Yeah.
When you were growing up, what did it mean to be a man?
A man has a lot of things, you know? Definitely strong, physically.
Provider. You never showed weakness.
Able to move past things or take things in stride. It was hard. There was a lot of mixed messages from media, from my parents.
You know, growing up, I had my dad and my uncle who were huge. My uncle was a tank. He would bring extra weights to the gym because he didn't have enough for him.
I think I grew up being an only child with parents that worked a lot. Just someone who wanted closeness, and so that manifested itself as wanting to have a girlfriend or find a partner because that's all I saw in media.
For me, being a man meant to be a provider. Both of my parents were engineers. It was all about having a successful life. So not to have that meant I was less of a man.
I think the biggest part of being a man was to have respect.
Just like being a big tough guy, you know? Nothing can hurt you physically or emotionally. The respect was more of a respect through fear than love.
Did you ever try to do that as a kid?
As a kid, no, not so much. My personal story is a little bit different.
My family, we're immigrants, and obviously when we first came over here, we were in pretty crippling debt. Constant frustration in my parents' life, and my dad wouldn't get angry about stuff like that. He would just take it out on petty stuff. And I remember growing up, I would think that the manliest I've seen him is when he was angry. And so I started to try and emulate that as a kid. I would just start getting angry over the stupidest things.
My dad was a big tough guy. He had a lot of respect. He used to beat people with bats and stuff like that. And he ended up getting murdered when I was 3. And so I grew up never wanting to be like him.
In middle school one time, I had this crush on this girl, and this one guy teased me about oh, you're partnering with Anna. And then I was so angry I didn't know how to act, and I kicked him. The way she looked at me afterwards, there was this look of disgust in her face. I think that was a moment that was brought upon by just seeing men be powerful to get something they wanted.
You know, I saw one end of it. I saw, it was toxic to be that manly. At the same time, I struggled with finding security in my own manhood,
Did you ever feel like men could be vulnerable?
I never had problem showing emotion until I was about 10 years old. When I got into my teenage years, I grew up in Iran, and it's a little bit of a different culture. Being vulnerable, it's not acceptable.
Oh yeah, most of my life you couldn't be vulnerable. It was weak, you get picked on or beat on.
So I had to kind of live up to that, and there's a lot of bottled up emotion in that sense, yeah.
I feel like a lot of the time when you show vulnerability, people think you're less of a man.
You really had to cut that part of you off. You couldn't cry in front of anyone. The first time I actually experienced it being normal was with my one of my first capoeira teachers. He was Brazilian, and at that point I realized it was more of a cultural thing. He was a big, strong guy. He was the leader of this massive group, martial arts group. And in Brazil, it's different. When you're a leader of a martial arts group, it's like a gang, So, but at the same time, he was super professional. He was the president of the National Bank, family man. I don't even remember what it was, but he was bawling. He was crying about something. It was just so normal, and he was so open about it. And it took me back, how can this guy be so big and strong and be this person and just be so comfortable with being emotional? That had a big effect on me.
Probably the first time I ever saw my dad cry was when my uncle passed away. That just sort of rung true to me because I went through my entire young life thinking that my dad is the toughest man ever and nothing could break him, but that was sort of proof that there's no such thing as just keeping your shield up all the time.
Can you share about the last time you cried?
I think the last time I cried,
Probably when my dog died. Yeah, that was the most recent.
I think the last time I cried, I had a really abusive boss in my previous job. After, I think, 11 months of being in that position, abused every day, verbally and mentally, I just kind of blew up at him. I've been with my girlfriend for about 3.5 years, and that was the first time that she saw me cry.
Last time I cried was yesterday. I got a call from my ex who has my daughter. My daughter was in a hotel and she got a cup of hot water for some hot chocolate and she spilled it all over herself. And got burns all over her legs and arm. And she's my little baby, you know, so it's hard to hear.
I was having dinner just with my girlfriend and her 2 roommates, and they were talking about their family and just, I don't know why, but the conversation took like a deep dive into like the relationships they have with their parents, and it made me turn around into this thought of how I felt like I'm not as close with my family or able to connect with them, and it kind of broke me down.
Did you feel like it was okay for you to cry?
Not at all. It's like, these are my close friends, I should be able to cry, it's fine, whatever, but like, there was this inherent feeling of, I should suppress this. I don't want to burden other people with my emotions right now. It just made it worse trying to suppress it, as it usually does.
Seeing my teacher was an eye-opening experience, but up until recently, I'd be afraid to, you know, I'd cry in a movie or something and make sure no one could see me and be like, all right, stretch or something, act like, you know, wipe a tear when no one's looking at me, you know.
Do you feel like men should be allowed to cry?
Definitely. Crying is a wonderful, useful, practical, and just spiritual thing.
It's like, when I'm happy, why would I bottle that up?
If you don't let it manifest as sadness, it'll manifest as anger.
And it's hard, you know, I'm recently divorced. A big problem with the relationship I had was, you know, I'd share those things and they'd be exploited. It's very difficult to be open. And I would imagine that goes for anybody, but.
I think the most important part about being vulnerable is working through your emotions in a healthy way. You don't have to do it in public, you know, you can still put on the face if you want to, but you need to go home and self-reflect and make sure that you know that it is okay to be vulnerable. If not with other people, then at least with yourself.
It's like trying to go through life without a piece of yourself. How could you go through life without crying?
If you have a son in the future and he ends up watching this video, what would you say to him?
If I had a son,
If I have a son and they're watching this video,
I would tell them not to be so impressionable and not to care too much about what other people think.
I would say, honestly, being strong is probably not letting social stigma get to you. The strongest thing you can do is be yourself.
life's gonna be tough, you know? There's gonna be a lot of stuff to figure out. It's very important that you are true to yourself, and that's really hard to know a lot of the time.
Don't care about looking weak, because that's how you can become strong.
You know, I just talked about how I'm just thinking about this subject. And I was talking to my girlfriend earlier about crying. My daughter too, like, you know, she'd fall or something. I was like, did you cry? You know, I was like, part of me is like, okay, that's normal. But then that might be internalized as, okay, well, you're not allowed to cry if there's anything that's gonna bring on sad feelings or something like that. So I think there's some balance that needs to be found there also. So I'm not too sure what I would say to my kids at this point. I'm just still trying to process what I've experienced, because it's been 43 years of programming, you know. I don't know.
Hey friends, Kevin here. I hope you enjoyed this video. It's part of a 2-part series on what it means to be a strong man or woman. Click right here to see that video. And as a way for me to try to make this channel sustainable so we can keep making videos for you all, we decided to start designing some shirts that share the message behind each video that we create. So you can start to wear on the outside what you believe on the inside. If you like this design, go check out the shirts. They're on the website in the description below. So with that, remember to please subscribe and hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss the next video. Much love, my friends. Till next time, see ya.